Hey everybody, how's it going today? It's Todd from All Music. I'm glad you were able to tune in today. Let's see. Today we are talking about 1989. This is the last year of the 80s, and I'm going to do my special edition. I'm just not going to do it with the Wikipedia notes because, frankly, I feel like crap because of the everything that's going on right now in our country, and in my personal life. There's a lot of health issues and things like that, and I just hardly have the energy to give you the full special edition show. But I do want to continue to give some sort of message of hope and love, and I, I, uh, I just going through the list of my songs today, or my albums today. It's like almost, not all of them, but half of these just have this message to me that's like, well, that's ironic. That's ironic. Uh, so let's just get started, and let's see where this goes. We will go ahead and start with my number 10. And for 1989, these are my favorite albums that were released, as far as sort of the mainstream. I'm kind of focused on the mainstream right now. This particular segment, as far as the countdowns, the top six, the top nine, the top 10, whatever it might be. This series, I should say. Although I do throw a little bit of a ringer in there, and that would be my actually my number 10 is sort of the ringer. It's not necessarily a sort of a mainstream album, but still, it's one of my favorites of the year, and it's Soundgarden. Louder Than Love, not a super huge hit for them, not the big Soundgarden that we're used to and we're about ready to see, but nevertheless, like I explained in earlier shows, that when I did discover Soundgarden, I went back and found their previous releases, and this thing kicks butt. This has got so much great work on it. Fantastic album. Nothing super notable as far as like radio hits and mainstream. So to contradict how I opened the show, but up against some of the other albums that were sort of my options, I just felt like with the title "Louder Than Love," I just felt like it was pretty appropriate. Um, it just doesn't seem like love is enough, so we got to get louder than love these days. So that is my number 10. Um, Super good album. I do really, really like it. Um, for the most part, it's just pretty much kick-ass rock. That's about all there is. But if I was to now, I'm just going to go ahead and contrast that kick-ass rock with something very pop and very mainstream, and that's Phil Collins as my number 9 pick for 1989. But seriously, total Phil Collins, not the Genesis Phil Collins. I mean, same guy, but not that kind of work. I guess it will be in a albums to come. As far as Genesis, he will Genesis will take on that sort of Phil Collins style, but definitely an interesting album. Uh, some of these albums definitely have like that 80s production, which is not really my favorite type of stuff, but there's some just beautiful songs here. He's doing his R&B sort of funk, and that kind of thing. Good stuff. I really like it. I just like Phil Collins, um, and it's a good album, and it's my number 9 today. But seriously, you know, okay, let's move on. I hardly have the energy to do this today. I hate to say it. I hope you have the energy to see it, watch it. Um, Try to keep things upbeat. Um, but let's see, what am I doing here? Oh yeah, I'm gonna go over to my number 8, if I can find it. Oh, there it is. Another one of those albums. When I saw the title, I was like, Yeah, that's an interesting title for today. End of the Innocents by Don Henley. Pretty good album. I had it. I listened to it a lot. Uh, Into the Innocents is a great song. I Will Not Go Quietly. It's a very good song. The Last Worthless Evening, New York Minute, Shangri-La, Give Me What You Got. Pretty good stuff. You know, it's it's not hard rock and roll, but and it's kind of Eagles-ish, but definitely good stuff for at the time too. You know, it's kind of what was going on. I liked it. So that brings me to number seven. Number seven is kind of interesting because when this artist first came out, you know, I liked this his initial song, but he got compared to kind of Jimi Hendrix in a way, like a fake Jimi Hendrix. Lenny Kravitz, another interesting title, Let Love Rule. Uh, yeah, if that could just be the message today. But never was much of a Lenny Kravitz fan for some reason. Not that I listened to him to give him a fair shot, but when I went to see U2 about 5 years ago, and guess who opened up for U2? I was at the Angel Stadium in Ventura, and it was the U2's. It was their 360 tour. So it was they had that big, huge like stage, and the just like monitors all around the stage. So no matter where you were in Angel Stadium, you can get some close up shots, even though I was in the bleachers. And it packed. And Lenny Kravitz opened up, and holy crap! You know, just didn't for some reason I fell into the bullshit of you know a Jimi Hendrix imitation type thing. He has so many great songs and he has such a style of his own. Yeah, he's you know he has a couple of songs that kind of sounded like you know sort of Jimi Hendrix ish, but so do a lot of people. I mean that's like the blues, man. A lot of people emulated that style at the time, over the years. Yeah, Jimi Hendrix was an innovator, and he was, you know, very unique in his on his own. But definitely a great album. A lot of great songs on here, and every song he played in that concert, you know, he played for what 45 minutes, an hour. I mean, a good long time for an opening act. And I'll tell you what, it was a great concert. He is a great performer with a great musicians and songs. Every song I knew. It's like, oh wait a minute, what was I thinking? Don't you know when that happens? Like sometimes you don't even realize it's you know a certain band, and you go, oh really? That was Lenny Kravitz. I love that song, or whoever it might be. It was like that for me with Lenny Kravitz. You know, I just didn't give him a fair shake at first because I fed into some of the bullshit that people were saying, and there's a number of bands like that that turned out to be some of my favorite bands. One of them was Collective Soul. I was working in this workshop before I started my own wood shop, and one of the guys that was working there before me, he just told me how much he hated Collective Soul and blah 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 blah. So I didn't listen to him. I don't know why. I just like I mean I listened to the guy instead of the band, and then but I kept hearing this cool music that I really liked, you know, and so finally I just broke down and started checking it out, and I just fell another rabbit hole, you know, the Collective Soul rabbit hole. It was like that with Lenny Kravitz, you know. I just had to admit to myself that I got to stop listening to other people's bullshit and make my own decisions, and you know, do what's right. uh, but you know, uh, but basically most of this stuff is pretty mainstream stuff, except for obviously the Soundgarden "Louder Than Love," and that goes uh, definitely for my next pick. What a fun album this one was. Um, the B-52s, man, this was fun. You know, it's just a fun dance a party band. You know, I remember before this album came out, and they were doing like uh, um, Rock Lobster back you know earlier in the late '70s, and I think it was could be the early '80s, but I believe it was just before MTV, and yeah, I think they were on Don Kirshner's. show, and these guys came on, and oh man, just super fun. This is a great album with a lot of just funky beats and funky rhythms and just fun songs and lyrics. Definitely a good album. I mean, obviously they got Rome, which was a big hit, and Love Shack, and but Cosmic Thing is fun. Dry Country is fun. Just a lot of really good songs and just a fun band, and I really like them. And they actually made my number 6 on the list. Beating out some of my favorite artists of all time, like Phil Collins and Soundgarden, stuff like that. Of course, if it was a couple years later, Soundgarden would have been a lot higher with some of their later stuff. But I just wanted to give them a shout out for their earlier works before they had got more popular. All right, so that's good. The next album, which would be my number 5, is just a legend, really. I mean, he was actually labeled a god. And of course, if you can imagine in the 60s, Eric Clapton, he had some pretty big success in his younger years with lots of different bands and groups and blues player, but he just wasn't ever satisfied with, it didn't seem like he was satisfied with what he was doing ever. And and he finally just ended up starting a solo career, which had some hits, but he had a huge drug problem at the time. And this is a beautiful album. It's got some great songs. The only song I really didn't care to hear was really Hound Dog. Probably didn't really need to hear that. But Pretending, Bad Love. Some people say it's a Layla copy, but hey, he wrote Layla too. So I don't see what the problem is. Before You Accuse Me, a couple covers. I like that song, Before You Accuse Me. He does a pretty good job with it. So as far as covers go in this band, I just didn't care for the Hound Dog cover, but a good album and some absolutely gorgeous playing on a lot of these songs, and some of his slow blues stuff on here is just gorgeous, beautiful. So I like that a lot. So that was my number 5, which brings us to number 4. And I don't know, these guys, super big, but they get a little bit of a hard rap for their music kind of at this time. But dang, man, I listened to it again just recently, and freaking Aerosmith, Pump. We've all heard like Going Down, Love in the Elevator, and that kind of stuff. But some of these tunes just reminded me of a Toys in the Attic, and even some Rocks type stuff. I mean, I think it was better than like Night in the Ruts or Right in the Nuts, whatever you call it. Night in the Ruts. I think it was way better than that and that was pretty early in their career, but they were kind of having a hard go of it due to drugs and just their own personnel problems, whatever. But when I went back and I listened to this album, the licks are great, and it really did remind me of that old school, the Aerosmith that everybody loved, of Pump, not Pump, that is Pump, but Toys in the Attic and Rocks. I thought a lot of the licks and the songs were very reminiscent of that style. They didn't copy the songs at all. They were songs of their own, and I know they did have some writing help at this point to try to get their career back on track and whatnot, but definitely a good album that I felt is worthy of my list. And out of this year, number 1989, they made my top 10 at number 4. One of my favorite bands of all time lands in the top 3 spot, and they've had a few albums before this, and I just didn't really care for. But this was really, I think, their breakout album. And I don't think it's their best album. For me, it's not their best. I prefer some others better. But at the time I had this, and I was like, yeah, this is fucking cool. Oh, excuse me. Really cool. I like this a lot. This is a lot of funk, and you really start to get the sense of where the Red Hot Chili Peppers are headed, a great album. Super good. Mother's Milk, 1989. Good stuff. I mean, this is what pretty much launched them, I think. Finally, they sort of, the charts with Higher Ground. It was, the Stevie Wonder song that kind of got them some recognition on the radio. But just a really funky, great album. Love it a lot. Good stuff. And it was, just to me, the beginnings of the Red Hot Chili Peppers that I love. I mean, and through the years with their member changes, and stuff like that, they had some hits and they had some misses, but there was a period in the 90s where I thought they were freaking hitting on all cylinders, and I loved like 3 or 4 albums of theirs in a row that just were incredible. And and also sensing their growth and stuff like that. And hopefully they'll make my list. And as we get into the 90s this week, and start getting into some of their other albums. But definitely an album that kind of got their career rolling and off to a red hot Chili Peppers start. All right, so that brings me to my number 2 of 1989. And, I think almost everybody loves this artist, and he is sorely missed. He's recently passed away over the last year or so. Tom Petty, his solo album. I say solo album, but he definitely had some of the heartbreakers playing on this thing. But dang, remember Free Fallin' when that came out? Still a huge hit. I mean, I just don't know. Who doesn't like that song and who hasn't heard it. Won't Back Down, another great song. Love is a Long Road, Facing the Crowd. These are just Running on a Dream. My band still plays Running on a Dream. We usually open the third set with that. We just balls out Running on a Dream, just full force. It just it's off and running, and people are just like, whoa, and we do a really good job of that song. And it's a really fun song to play. But these songs are great, super, super great album, and a super great artist, whether he's Tom Petty solo or Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, because he surrounds himself with really cool people that, are pretty much like lifelong friends and musicians. And he's a real great guy. Rest in peace, of course. All right. Well, there we are. We're at 1989. We're finishing. This is it. The end of the 90s. We are finishing the 90s already. I'm so glad I was able to get to this today and get this out to you. But probably one of the best album, definitely the best album for me in this particular year was one of a band that I had already been into. And when this album came out, I was in love with it. The Cure. Disintegration. I hope that's not a sign of things to come in the near future. Disintegration of our country. I hate to get political. I try not to, but it's pretty upsetting what's going on. It just feels like we've been piled on, with the COVID thing and just all these different things going on. Plus, if you've got personal things going on too that also intersect at the same time, it's pretty gnarly. But man, was this a great album. I mean, just from start to finish. I mean, how many times have I played Fast on Easton Street, Disintegration, Homesick, Untitled, Pain Song, Pictures of You, love it. It's a great song. This was probably, I don't know, I would say like for the Cure fans back in the 80s and late 70s, early 80s, this is pretty highly coveted, I would say, as far as their output. Good album. And it's my number 1 for 1980. So that's it. We got Soundgarden, Louder Than Love. Phil Collins, But Seriously at number 9. Don Henley, End of the Innocence. Lenny Kravitz, Let Love Rule. The B-52s, Cosmic Thing. Eric Clapton's Journeyman. Aerosmith, Pump. Red Hot Chili Peppers, Mother's Milk. And Tom Petty, his solo album, Full Moon Fever. And The Cure's Disintegration. That's 1989. I want to thank you guys. This is All Music with Todd Ledbetter. I appreciate you guys watching, and I look forward to getting into the 90s with some more interesting mainstream type rock and roll things that we've would hear on the radio and stuff like that. I'm also going to do some other types of series of like heavy metal and different type of blues and whatever I feel like, really. But I'm going to kind of categorize them into different types of genres in a way. And this is more of sort of an overreaching mainstream, sort of what you hear on the radio type stuff to get started with. And we're going to finish this series all the ways to 2019. I'm sure I'll be done before the end of 2020. So I might not be able to get to 2020 until January, but probably before I finish this, I'll start some other series as well, and we'll start integrating those in, so it's not constantly ranking albums by the year. But we'll get some more. We'll get some more interviews, and we'll do some album reviews and such like that. So thanks for watching, guys. I appreciate it. You guys be good out there, be safe, and be good. I'll talk to you soon. Love you all. Bye bye.